The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes but in having new eyes. Sometimes the people we think we understand the most turn out to be the ones we know the least. What would you do if someone tried to humiliate you for a job you trained them to do? Let us know in the comments section below. Abby Carter wasn't interested in praise. If she had her way, her name would never appear on the plaques lining the Academy's front wall, even though every one of them owed something to her. She preferred the back of the room, the shadows, the quiet nod of respect from those who understood who she really was, and silence from those who never took the time to learn. That morning she stood in front of her bedroom mirror, smoothing the front of a plain black hoodie. No badge, no belt, no authority on display, just Abby. The woman who'd earned her stripes behind closed doors, who'd gone toe-to-toe with the old guard and lived to rebuild the entire system from the inside. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a message from her sister Alyssa. Alyssa's news said another protest might spark off tonight near 14th. Please be careful. Abby replied with a thumbs-up emoji. That was enough. Her world didn't allow time for long explanations. She had work to do. She left her small, neat house tucked in the Eastwood neighborhood, where kids still played ball in the streets and neighbors left their porch lights on at night, not out of fear, but familiarity. Her route would take her through Westward Plaza, a newly gentrified area still learning how to blend its old residents with its new face. Coffee shops had names like Elm and Iron, and the price of rent had quadrupled in 5 years. Abby knew the terrain well. She wasn't there for coffee. She was visiting a former cadet's family, a boy who dropped out of the academy after breaking down in her office, hands trembling as he confessed he couldn't stomach the culture of silence anymore. Abby hadn't stopped him. She told him to listen to that voice. But she promised she'd check in on his mother from time to time, and she kept her word. Halfway across the plaza, she noticed the flashing lights in her periphery, a cruiser parked illegally on the corner, engine still running. She clocked it out of habit. Habit was how you stayed alive. Behind the wheel was a young white officer, buzz cut, big build, new face. He leaned out the window and watched her for a beat too long. Abby didn't break stride. Then came the call out, "Ma'am, I need you to stop for a moment." She turned slow, didn't blink. "Can I help you, officer?" she asked evenly. His hand was near his belt. The tone he used was sharp, forced, unsure of itself and overcompensating. "Let's see some ID." Abby didn't move. "Why?" "You're loitering near a construction zone. We've had issues here recently." She scanned the plaza, empty, clean. No tape, no workers, no visible signs of anything that resembled issues. "You sure about that?" she said quietly. "Who said?" "ID, now." He stepped out of the car. She could feel his pulse, the nervous energy of someone not yet in control of themselves but desperate to appear as if they were. This wasn't her first time being mistaken for less than who she was. But it stung every time. She handed over her driver's license. The moment he read it, his face changed. Just a flicker, enough to register. "Abigail Carter," he read out loud. "You live around here?" "Yeah," she replied, her tone cool and unbothered. "You?" He didn't laugh, just stared. "Next time, try leading with respect," she said. "Not orders." "You're free to go," he mumbled, handing her ID back. She tucked it in her jacket, nodded once, and walked away. Behind her, the officer stared at the ID a little longer before finally getting back in the cruiser. She didn't bother. Turning back, he'd find out soon enough. By the time Abby reached the outer edge of the block, her phone buzzed again. It was from Chief Ortiz. "Ortiz, reminder, new rookie class starts training tomorrow at 8 a.m. Don't be late, Lieutenant." She smiled, not because of the title, but because she already knew who was on the roster. And tomorrow, that same young cop would be sitting front row, notebook open, trying not to look foolish. He'd have no idea she was the lead instructor. Not until she stepped to the podium. And when she did, she wouldn't mention the plaza, wouldn't humiliate him in a tweet. But she wouldn't forget. Jake Hollins didn't wake up thinking he'd made a mistake, not until his boots touched the floor, not until he rinsed the cheap drugstore gel from his face and looked at himself in the mirror like he had something to prove. His father's badge still sat on the dresser, framed, dusty, untouched. He hadn't earned the right to look at it yet. But he kept it there like a challenge. His first day of official department training began in 30 minutes, and already he felt like he was late. The precinct was small, outdated, nothing like the slick station houses they showed on TV. And the classroom, even worse. Fluorescent lights that hum just enough to annoy you but not enough to justify a complaint. Plastic chairs that made your back ache by the second hour. A whiteboard with marker stains from 15 years ago still faintly bleeding through. Jake sat 2 rows from the front, dead center. He wanted to be seen. Wanted to show the trainers he was hungry, focused, disciplined, everything the last generation wasn't. The room was still filling in. A mix of faces, black, Latino, Asian, white. A few women. All serious and quietly observing. Everyone looked nervous, even the ones trying to act like they weren't. Jake didn't talk to anyone. Not yet. Not until he knew who was worth talking to. At exactly 8 a.m., the door opened. The room went silent. She stepped in wearing the same black hoodie he'd seen the day before, except now, her badge was clipped to the waistband of fitted navy slacks. Her boots weren't the tactical kind. They were the kind you wore when you'd already walked through fire and didn't need to prove it anymore. Jake felt his lungs stop. His mouth stayed half open. It was her, the woman from the plaza. He blinked, hoping somehow it wasn't. "Good morning," she said. "I'm Lieutenant Abby Carter. I'll be your lead instructor." Every chair in the room shifted forward a millimeter. Everyone subconsciously moving to attention. Except Jake. He couldn't move. His blood felt like it was bubbling behind his eyes. Abby scanned the room slowly. She didn't speak like a drill sergeant. She didn't raise her voice. But her presence was all power, quiet, unshakable, complete. "Some of you might have heard of me. Most of you haven't. Doesn't matter. You're here now. And what you think you know about this job is about to be challenged." She paused, just long enough to let that sit in their chests. "By the end of this training cycle, every one of you will have been pushed. Questioned. Exposed. And if I'm doing my job right, changed." Jake's hands curled under the desk. She hadn't called him out. Not by name. Not by glance. Not even a flicker of recognition. It rattled him more than if she had. "This job isn't about force," Abby continued. "It's not about how loud you can shout or how fast you can unclip your holster. It's about reading people. De-escalating what doesn't need to be a war. Making sure someone's child gets to go home at night, even if that someone's calling you every name in the book." A few heads nodded. Jake didn't move. Anyone here ever had a weapon drawn on them by another cop? Silence. Abby raised her own hand. 5 times I have. 3 times, each time it was a misunderstanding. Each time, I did exactly what I tell civilians to do, hands where they can see, calm voice, no sudden moves. Each time, I walked away. She stepped closer to the front row. "You think that was because I'm lucky? Nah. It was because I'm trained. And because I knew the stakes before the other person even realized what they were doing." Jake was swallowing bile now. His heart thudded against the inside of his ribs, begging to escape. He watched as she picked up a dry erase marker and scribbled 2 words on the board. "Perception equals power. This right here," she tapped the board, "is what'll keep you, and everyone else, alive." How you see them. How they see you. How quickly you can rewrite that story in real time. That's the whole job. She turned. Who wants to tell me what that equation means to them? No one moved. Jake hated the silence. It felt like judgment. Then Abby's eyes found his for a second. Officer Hollins, she said. He stiffened. Yes, ma'am, he replied, voice cracking slightly. You've been quiet. Care to share? Every pair of eyes turned to him. He swallowed hard. Perception is how people react to what they think is happening, not necessarily what's actually happening. Abby nodded. Go on. Jake fumbled forward. So if someone sees me, sees the badge, the uniform, they might think I'm a threat, even if I'm not. She tilted her head. And if I see someone who doesn't look right, I might treat them like a threat before I have reason to. Pause. A long one. Abby looked at him. Really looked. There was no cruelty in her gaze. No smirk. No gotcha moment. Just silence, and gravity. That's honest, she said finally. And it's the beginning of doing better. Jake didn't know what to do with that. Praise? A lesson? A warning? Let's break into groups, Abby said. Your assignments are on the table near the door. Scenario work begins in 20. As the class stood up and started to move, Jake sat frozen. He had never felt so small, and so seen, at the same time. He glanced around, but no one else seemed to realize what had just happened. The response from the crowd startled Abby. Heads turned. And the alertness in her eyes fell slow and deliberate, her voice low so only he could hear. Nice to meet you again, officer. Jake couldn't breathe. She didn't wait for a response. And in that instant, something cracked open in him, shame, confusion, but also something else, curiosity. He hadn't known who she was yesterday. But now he wanted to know everything. 2 weeks into training, and Jake Hollins was sweating in a way he hadn't since football camp back in high school. Not from the sun, or the drills, or the mile-and-a-half runs in full gear. No, it was something deeper. Something gnawing at him ever since that first day, when Lieutenant Abby Carter stepped into the room like she owned the very concept of authority. He'd messed up. Bad. And she hadn't said a word about it to anyone. That silence haunted him more than yelling ever could. Each day since, Abby had pushed the rookies harder than any of them expected. She didn't belittle them. She didn't scream. But she broke them open, layer by layer, with questions that pierced, exercises that revealed every blind spot, and real-world simulations that made most of them leave the room feeling like they knew nothing at all. Jake noticed something strange, too. Abby was hardest on the ones who reminded her of herself. The loud ones. The cocky ones. The ones who mistook control for respect. But when it came to him, her approach was surgical. Cool. Measured. She never let him off the hook, but she never dragged him either. Instead, she waited for him to drag himself. And he had been. Ever since that plaza incident. He'd started seeing everything differently. The way the other rookies tensed up whenever they were in certain neighborhoods. The way older officers whispered, "Watch that one," when a black teenager walked by wearing a hoodie. The way some of his peers nodded when Abby talked about implicit bias, as if agreeing, but never changed a thing. In their notes, Jake wrote everything down. Even the parts that hurt. Especially those. This morning's exercise was a live scenario. Abby had pulled 6 rookies into the training simulation room, an exact replica of a neighborhood street, complete with storefront facades, parked cars, and strategically placed civilians played by Academy volunteers. Jake was paired with Simone Tran, the sharp-eyed, always prepared cadet from South Seattle. She didn't talk much, but when she did, every word landed like a bullet. Simone didn't like Jake, and she didn't bother hiding it. "Just follow my lead," she said as they were briefed on the situation. Possible domestic disturbance. Unconfirmed 911 call. Suspect may be armed. No backup yet. Jake nodded. As they moved through the scenario set, Jake kept scanning the windows, just like they were taught. Hands visible. Voice low. Simone did the talking. That was fine with him. They approached the residence. A mock-up house. A man stood yelling at a woman on the porch. The woman was clutching a child, her voice barely audible over the man's rage. "I said, get back inside. I don't care what you..." "Sir." Simone interrupted, her tone calm but firm. "We need you to take a step back and keep your hands where we can see them." "What? She called you?" "This is my damn house." "We understand, sir. We just want to make sure everyone's okay. I didn't lay a hand on her." Jake's heart started to pick up. His palm brushed the edge of his taser holster. He felt the old instinct coming. "Step in. Take over. Raise your voice if needed." But Abby's words echoed in his mind. "How you see them. How they see you." So he did something he wouldn't have done 2 weeks ago, he stepped back. Simone's hand rose slightly in a non-threatening gesture. "We're not here to accuse anyone. We're just making sure everyone's safe." The man glared, but took a small step back. The woman nodded faintly. The kid was crying softly. Scenario complete. The bell rang. Back in the debriefing room, the cadets sat in stiff chairs, fidgeting with their sleeves. Abby stood at the front, arms crossed, watching them one by one with that same unreadable expression. "No one pulled a weapon," she said. "No one raised their voice. And most importantly, no one got hurt. That's what I call progress." She looked at Simone. "Excellent control. You de-escalated without losing authority." Then her eyes fell on Jake. "And Officer Holland," she said slowly, "you showed restraint." He didn't speak. Just nodded. His stomach flipped anyway. "That's the job," Abby added. "You don't always need to be the one talking. You just need to know when it's not your moment." Jake caught a few of the other rookies sneaking glances at him. He wasn't sure if it was respect or curiosity. Later that afternoon, after the rest of the rookies filed out for the day, Jake stayed behind. He didn't even know why. Just that his feet wouldn't move toward the exit. Abby was writing something on her clipboard, alone in the corner of the room. He cleared his throat. She didn't look up. "You're going to stand there, you got something to say?" Jake stepped forward. "I'm sorry," he said. That got her attention. She looked at him, really looked, and tilted her head just slightly. "For what?" she asked, though she already knew. "For the way I approached you at the plaza. For not knowing who you were. And for not caring to ask." "You didn't need to know who I was," Abby replied. "You needed to know who you were." Jake's face warmed. "I thought I did." "That's the problem," she said softly. "Most do." Long pause. "I wasn't trying to be a problem," he said. "You weren't," she answered. "You were being a mirror. And mirrors are dangerous when folks aren't ready to look at themselves." Jake exhaled through his nose. "Did you ever make that mistake?" he asked. Her eyebrows raised. "I made worse," she said. "But the difference is, I didn't stay there." Jake nodded slowly. "I'm trying not to stay here either." Abby leaned back against the wall, folding her arms. She studied him, not the way you study a threat, but the way you study a person becoming something else. "It's why I didn't say anything that day," she said. Because people don't learn from being humiliated. They learn from realizing they almost became the thing they swore they'd never be. Jake looked down. I think I was already on my way to becoming that. Maybe, she said. But maybe now. He looked up at her, eyes searching. What happens now? She shrugged. You show up again tomorrow. And you keep showing up. Until the uniform doesn't make you someone else, it makes you more of who you say you are. Jake took that in, the weight of it, the truth of it, and for the first time since the academy started, he didn't feel defensive. He felt grateful. He nodded. Yes, ma'am. Abby gave a single satisfied nod, then she returned to her clipboard. As he turned to leave, she added, without looking up, oh, and Hollins. He paused. You ever make another mistake like that, don't run from it. Run into it. He smiled faintly. Yes, ma'am. Then he walked out. Still a rookie, but no longer the same. The city didn't change overnight. But something about the way people moved inside it had begun to shift just slightly, the way the morning roll call sounded a little less robotic, the way young officers started quoting things from the training room like scripture. And at the heart of it all was Lieutenant Abby Carter, not seeking the spotlight, but earning it anyway. It had been 3 months since that first awkward encounter in Westwood Plaza. The plaza still stood, cleaner now, with new murals going up on the old construction walls. One of them featured silhouettes of community members holding hands. Jake had passed it the other day and paused. It looked simple. Almost childish. But it made his chest feel weird, like something small inside him had finally unclenched. He'd graduated. Not top of the class, but top in something else. Something harder to define. Respect, maybe. Accountability. And maybe more than anything, Jake didn't say much about that day in the plaza anymore. But he hadn't forgotten it. He carried it like a stone in his pocket, heavy enough to remind him it happened, small enough not to slow him down. Thank you. And Abby, she'd watched it all unfold without rushing it. She believed in earned change, not fast turnarounds. In the weeks that followed training, she'd continued mentoring rookies who showed promise and patience. She'd kept tabs on those who didn't. Quietly. Firmly. She was shaping a department that could breathe differently. Today, she was invited to speak at a departmental conference, the kind with microphones and donuts and stiff applause. Abby hated those. But she'd accepted. Not because she liked being looked at, but because, for once, the audience wasn't just command staff. It was rookies. It was civilians. It was teenagers from local high schools. And sitting front row, by choice, was Officer Jake Hollins. The auditorium buzzed with side talk and camera flashes as Abby took the stage. He adjusted the mic once. I'm not here to give you statistics, she began, voice even. I'm here to tell you that the badge isn't the hard part. It's the soul behind it. The quiet dropped in. Heavy. You can teach a person to shoot, to write a report, to file a warrant. But you can't train someone to see. That takes more than a manual. That takes losing something, or almost losing something. She looked toward the back of the room. No one knew it, but she was looking for the memory of her younger self. I have been pulled over. Followed. Searched. Before I ever wore this uniform, I was someone it was used against. Gasp. Whispers. Someone tried to clap, but she didn't pause for it. I joined this force to change that. Not just the policies, the people. I teach rookies how to see without flinching. How to pause without fearing weakness. And how to unlearn what fear taught them. Then she let a silence hang. Some of them don't make it. Some of them don't want to. Her eyes dropped to Jake, who sat straighter when she did. But some of them do. And when they do, they change everything. The room stood still. When she stepped down from the stage, she didn't wait for handshakes. She walked straight out the side exit, where the autumn sun lit the pavement in gold. Jake caught up with her halfway down the ramp. "You didn't tell me you were going to call me out like that." She glanced sideways. "Didn't use your name. You didn't need to." Abby chuckled, soft, rare. "You sounded like someone who still believes this job can mean something." He added, "It can." She said, "But not by itself. It needs people who bleed for it. Who break for it. Who rebuild themselves for it." Jake nodded. "I wanted to tell you something," he said. "I had to make my first call last week. Suspicious person. Guy hanging around a school entrance. Dispatch said he was pacing, possibly armed. Stopped walking." "And she asked?" Jake exhaled slowly. "I approached slow. I kept my tone soft. He was a dad waiting for his son. Kid had detention and forgot his phone at home. He raised an eyebrow, asked for ID. I didn't run his plates. I just talked to him." Abby smiled, fully this time. "You think I did the right thing?" he asked. "You didn't escalate," she replied. "You saw the person, not the profile. That's the job." Jake kicked at a loose pebble with his boot. "I keep thinking about how it could have gone. If someone else showed up instead of me. If I hadn't gone through your training." He looked toward the trees lining the edge of the parking lot. "It went how it should have. That's all I care about." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small folded paper. "What's this?" she asked. "Application," Jake said. "For the peer mentorship unit. They asked me to nominate someone I think could train new recruits in community response." Abby opened it. Her name was listed under referral. "You'd think I still want to teach more rookies." "I think you don't know how to stop," he said, with a grin. She handed it back to him. "You sure about this?" "I'm not trying to be the hero," Jake said. "Just trying not to be the reason someone else breaks." She nodded slowly, taking that in. "You're not," she said. "Not anymore." And just like that, the air between them shifted. No longer mentor and student. Now something closer to equals. Not because of rank, but because of grace. Behind them, the conference was still going. More speeches. More policy debates. More surface-level nods. But out here in the quiet, something deeper had taken root. Abby put her hands in her pockets and looked out over the rooftops in the distance. "This city's watching," she said. Jake followed her gaze. "Let them," he replied. And together, they walked forward. Not as reminders of what had gone wrong, but as proof of what could go right. Even in a world that forgets your name. Even in a job that asks for everything. Even when the badge doesn't teach you.